What is going on, Trash Talkers? We're back with another episode for you. In today's video, we're going to be talking about the Divisional Round playoffs and our predictions for this season. All that and much more coming your way right now! Hey Trash Talkers, it's Mike here. Over 93% of you who view our show each and every day are not subscribed to the channel. If you could hit that red subscribe button, it would help us out tremendously, and it is completely free for you guys. If you want to stay up to date with our daily content, then click that bell icon and you will be notified every time we go live. Nick and I both really appreciate you subscribing to the channel, and we can't wait to keep making more daily content for you. All right, Nick. As we continue the series, we have gone through the wild card round, and that has led us to some very interesting matchups going into the divisional round. So let's take a look at the first matchup that we have for the divisional round, starting with the Kansas City Chiefs visiting the Cleveland Browns. Now, the Chiefs and the Browns, both of these teams massive improvements, and the one area that the Chiefs improved upon was that offensive line. That was the big issue for them in last year's Super Bowl. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they really just put the pedal to the metal. They sent people all over the field just coming after Patrick Mahomes. Now with that offensive line completely overhauled, you added Joe Tooney, you added Kyle Long, you added Orlando Brown Jr. I mean, just absolute studs on the offensive line. So they're going to be ready. But are they going to be ready for Jadeveon Clowney, Myles Garrett, Malik Jackson? These guys, I don't know. All right. So we're talking about a Browns defense that really got going this offseason. The additions of John Johnson III, Troy Hill, Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, Jadeveon Clowney, who I've already mentioned, on top of the fact that you already had Denzel Ward and Greedy Williams on this team. I think that there's a lot here to really dissect. So I just want to take a look. Chiefs offense versus Browns defense. It's tough to give the edge either way because Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce and all of these guys that the Chiefs offense has, they are one of a kind. They cannot be replicated. This is not a team that you can game plan for without having to deal with them first and foremost. You don't understand the speed that Tyreek Hill has or the strength that Travis Kelce has, how he just kind of ekes over the middle and gets open every single play. It's unreal. Then you have the Browns defense, who got much better, as I've already mentioned, and I believe that they're going to be able to put this thing together. They're going to be able to make sure that they're keeping Travis Kelce in check. They're going to make sure that they have somebody over the top of Tyreek Hill at all times. I actually have the Browns coming out in this one because I believe that this is going to come down to, can the Browns offense compete with the Chiefs defense? And I believe that the Chiefs defense is one of the weaker points on this team, specifically in the secondary. When you're talking about the wide receiver duo of Jarvis Landry and Odell Beckham Jr., don't forget about that running back duo that they have with Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. Kareem Hunt, who's looking to get a little redemption against his former team, and Andy Reid. I believe that the Cleveland Browns are poised to make a big run here, and what better way to make a statement than beating the Kansas City Chiefs, who are consistently in the Super Bowl.
That's a big win for the Cleveland Browns. They finally get redemption for that loss last playoffs against the Kansas City Chiefs. In our second AFC divisional round matchup, we have the number 5 seed Baltimore Ravens making their way to the number 1 seed Buffalo Bills. This is going to be one very electric game between these two offenses. Josh Allen versus Lamar Jackson. These two are really going to put on a show. And when we break it down, let's take a look at the Bills' offense. They're going to be predicated mostly on the pass game. I believe even with the addition of Matt Breida, it's a good addition. I believe he's a good depth piece, and he's a guy who really doesn't get injured too much. But I think that he's not a guy who really stands out among Zach Moss and Devin Singletary. I believe they still are lacking a true number 1 running back, a guy they can use as a workhorse. I just believe that the Bills passing attack, it's so far away better than their run game. This is what they're going to rely heavily on most against the Ravens. When we look at the Ravens offense, they can do either now that they've added all these receivers. You've got Rashad Bateman there, Sammy Watkins. These are two massive additions to Hollywood Brown and Mark Andrews for Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson is not only going to show off his ability to run the ball, but now we finally get to see him throwing the ball, and I believe he's going to show us just how much he's improved as a passing quarterback throughout the season. I believe by this point in the season, at this point in the playoffs, he's going to be ready for the time. I believe that he is getting better each and every season, and this is the year that he's going to put it all together. He'll have the ability to run as well as having the ability to hit his targets when he needs to the most. I believe that this is going to be one well-rounded Ravens offense, and I'm going to give them the slight edge. When we look over at the defenses, though, this is where we're going to be splitting some hairs because the Baltimore Ravens defense, their secondary is one of the best. Their defensive line is pretty stout with Calais Campbell still there holding down the defensive line. But then when you look at the linebackers, the loss of Yannick Ngakoue, Matt Judon, as I've mentioned, they are massive losses, and I just don't think the Ravens defense is going to be the same without a heavy pass rush. The secondary is going to work a lot harder. And then the Buffalo Bills defense, they've got a strong secondary, and they've got an even stronger defensive line. Adding Greg Rousseau in the draft this year, that was a huge add, and I believe their pass rush is going to be extremely strong, helping out their secondary. Both these linebacking cores are definitely the weaker spots for both defenses, but the Bills definitely have an upgrade, having Tremaine Edmonds as the guy locking down the middle of that field, locking down the defense for them. At the end of the day, I don't think there's anybody on this Buffalo Bills defense that can really stop Lamar Jackson. If he's able to throw the ball, that's going to keep the safeties and the cornerbacks back farther to play against these wide receivers, and it's going to give him more room to work with. Even though Tremaine Edmonds is there for the Buffalo Bills in the middle of the field and they've got stout defensive linemen, I just don't think they're going to be able to do anything with the speed and athleticism that Lamar Jackson has to provide. I believe this is really going to be a one-man show by Lamar, and he's really going to carry the Ravens on his back in this one. I believe the Ravens get a big victory over the number 1 seed Buffalo Bills in the divisional round.
That is quite the upset, and the Ravens coming all the way from the wild card round to beat the number 1 ranked Buffalo Bills. Absolutely incredible, which sets up one hell of a division rivalry for the AFC Championship game. The Baltimore Ravens going to visit the Cleveland Browns. All right, let's move over to the NFC where we take a look at the divisional round, starting off with the Minnesota Vikings visiting the Arizona Cardinals. The Minnesota Vikings, with their recent acquisition of cornerback Patrick Peterson, facing off against his former team and a guy that he knows pretty well in DeAndre Hopkins, guy he used to practice against every single day. Now, the Vikings, the Cardinals, these guys, they are going to face off against each other. So let's take a look at the Vikings defense. Obviously, vastly improved from where they were last year. They didn't have to go through the Packers this year, so they're not as battle tested as they should have been. But the Vikings, nonetheless, they've made it this far. You know, the defensive line, they got healthier. The linebackers, Anthony Barr and Eric Kendricks, they're back fully healthy, ready to go. I think they're going to be the pillar of this defense that carries them for most of the season. And I believe when you have guys on the defensive line that can really get after the quarterback, when you have the Dalvin Tomlinsons of the world that can really stop a running game as one person, and you have edge guys that can garner pressure without having to scheme blitzes and things like that, I think it opens up your backfield for better coverage and is going to really put pressure on the opposing quarterback to get things done. The problem is that the opposing quarterback is Kyler Murray, and Kyler Murray is just one of those guys that you don't bet against. Kyler Murray, kind of like Russell Wilson, Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, he can pretty much do it all. He can run the ball, he can throw the ball, he can do absolutely everything he's asked for. And if you're looking for any sort of idea as to why I'm saying that, take a look at the play of the year from last year, the Hail Murray, where this guy absolutely tosses up one hell of a throw perfectly on line for his number 1 receiver, DeAndre Hopkins, to go up and get it above every single defender, and he did just that. There is a cohesion between these two players that is almost unlike any other. I mean, we're talking about Brady Moss, we're talking about Peyton Manning and Marvin Harrison. I mean, we're talking about some of the all-time greats, Montana and Rice. absolutely incredible. I think that's what Kyler and DeAndre Hopkins have together. So this Vikings defense versus the Cardinals, I'm going to take the Cardinals offense here. Now, when you're talking about the Vikings offense versus the Cardinals defense, things get a little bit dicey because I believe that the biggest issue for the Cardinals comes on the secondary. I think their biggest holes are trying to fill some of the voids in the back end. Now, they did get Malcolm Butler and they got some pieces in there, but you haven't replaced Patrick Peterson, and I'm not one to hate on Malcolm Butler, but he's not Patrick Peterson. I still think even at this age Patrick Peterson's a better cornerback. I think that the safeties are going to be a bit of an issue for the Cardinals when you're trying to stop Justin Jefferson from crossing over the deep middle of the field, getting behind the defense. I think he's going to be an absolute pillar for this Vikings offense that's going to carry them leaps and bounds throughout the season, and we're going to see a lot of it in this matchup. Talking about the Cardinals, though, their defensive front seven, unmatched. I mean, you have Chandler Jones and J.J. Watt. You have Zaven Collins and Isaiah Simmons. You have absolute phenomenally talented players that are just going to run across the field. They're going to chase down Kirk Cousins left and right. And then Kirk Cousins on his side of the ball has Adam Thielen, Justin Jefferson, Irv Smith, and somebody by the name of Dalvin Cook. Never really heard of that guy. Either way, I think that Kirk Cousins has a lot of weapons to work with. My biggest issue is he's a stationary quarterback, and when you have guys that can fly around the field, like J.J. Watt and Chandler Jones, Zaven Collins, Isaiah Simmons, the guys that I've mentioned, these guys are going to be able to get him off of his game. They're going to be able to make him move around in the pocket, and that is not Kirk Cousins' strong suit. His ability to stay stationary, make throws from the pocket, make good reads, that's his game. That's the game that he plays and he wins. If he has to move, it's lights out, and I think that the Cardinals defense has what it takes to get him off his step, and I believe that the Cardinals defense will have the slight edge over the Vikings offense. So I gave the Cardinals defense the slight edge, and I gave the Cardinals offense the slight edge. I think you know where I'm going. No, I'm just kidding. The Cardinals are winning this game. I believe that the Cardinals are just too strong. All facets of the game. They are coached by Cliff Kingsbury, who's one of the most innovative coaches that we have in the NFL, and I believe he's going to give the Vikings a lot of different looks that they aren't used to. Look for the Cardinals to come out on top in this one.
And in our last matchup, we have the number 5 seed Los Angeles Rams facing off against the number 1 seed Tampa Bay Buccaneers, led by none other than Tom Brady. This is going to be a very good matchup, and it's the second time this season we are seeing this matchup. If you look earlier in the schedule, we actually have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers heading to the Los Angeles Rams in week 3 of this season, and in that matchup, the Buccaneers were the ones who came out on top, being the away team. Now they're the home team. Will things change? Let's break it down. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers offense has not changed from last season, nor has their defense, but you got Tom Brady leading the helm with Mike Evans, Antonio Brown, and Chris Godwin, and you've got Lombardi, Lenny back there with Ronald Jones. Not much more needs to be said. For the defense, the Buccaneers, they've got everybody there. Shaq Barrett, JPP. Then at linebacker, you still have Devin White and Levante David holding that down. The secondary, still a bunch of young guys. Still got guys like Carlton Davis there and Sean Murphy Bunting. Not big names, but they're definitely climbing the ladder board as far as cornerbacks go. And at safety, Antoine Winfield Jr., a guy who was massive for them last season and carrying into this season as well. This defense overall is one of the hardest in the NFL to go through, and it's going to be a big challenge for the Rams. But for their offense, they made massive changes. Adding Matthew Stafford was huge. And then you add Deshaun Jackson to this wide receiver corps, making it a 3-headed monster with him, Robert Woods, and Cooper Kupp. And at running back, they have Cam Akers, who's now had the entire season as the number 1 running back, the bell cow for this team. He's really shined in that role. This is one high-powered offense the Rams have put together on defense. Aaron Donald's there. Jalen Ramsey's there. You got Leonard Floyd in the middle of the field. I think that the Rams defense is really where they have some key pillars, as I mentioned, but there's also a lot of holes outside of those players, and this is where we're going to figure out the Buccaneers have a massive advantage when it comes to putting up points, because as long as you throw away from Jalen Ramsey, as long as you can get the ball out faster than Aaron Donald gets to you, which Tom Brady has done on multiple occasions, This is going to be a fairly easy game for the Buccaneers. I believe the Buccaneers defense has all the tools necessary to stop Matthew Stafford in this offense. And at the end of the day, it's going to not be a very competitive matchup, especially since we've seen this matchup once before. Both teams are going to make corrections, but I believe that Tom Brady is the ultimate competitor. He makes the ultimate adjustments during a season, and this team is just going to be ready to rock and roll. The Buccaneers get a massive victory over the Los Angeles Rams in the divisional round.
One hell of a victory for the Buccaneers, and just brings them one step closer to where they were last year and where they want to repeat being this year. So that's it. We have the conference championship game set up. We have the Baltimore Ravens visiting the Cleveland Browns in the AFC, and we have the Arizona Cardinals visiting the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in the NFC. Comment down below and let us know what you think of these games, what you thought of all the outcomes that we predicted, and what you think is going to happen in the next video, because stay tuned, because we're going to get right to it. All right, well, that's going to be all for now. Thank you all for watching. Be sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Hit that notification bell. We go live every single day. That'll be all. Peace and love.